Rambam, the book of Ahava, the book of love. And in the book of love, we have the laws of prayer. Davening. Okay. We're in chapter 5. Halacha number 1. A person who prays must be careful to tend to the following 8 matters. However, if he is pressured, confronted by circumstances beyond his control, or transgresses intentionally and does not attend to any of them, they are not an absolute necessity. They are standing. We're talking now, when we say prayer, we mean the Amida, right? The Amida should be done standing. As I announce always, at times I announce, take 3 steps backwards and 3 steps forward for your private audience with the Almighty, right? Standing, facing the temple, right? Towards Jerusalem. Preparation of your body. We're going to go through each thing, what that means. Proper clothing, proper place, control of your voice, bowing and prostration. Okay. Standing, what is implied? Generally, one should pray only while standing. Again, prayer, he's saying word prayer, it means the Amida, right? If you're doing Psuki de Zimra, saying Ashrei, you can be seated, right? There are different times. So this, because that's the mainstay of when we say of prayer. Thus, a person sitting in a boat or in a carriage should stand if he is able to do so. If not, he may sit in his place and pray. A person who is ill may pray while lying, even while lying on his side, provided he is able to have the proper intention. Similarly, one who is thirsty or hungry is considered as one who is ill. Therefore, if he is able to consecrate properly, he should pray. If not, he should not pray until he has eaten or drunk. One riding an animal should not descend from the animal. So an animal should not descend from the animal, even if he has someone to hold the animal. Rather, he should sit in his place and pray so his mind will be settled. I guess because, give me 1 second. I need to drink something. Get some water. Stuff. Exactly. All right, fine. Oh, I needed to stand. Okay, facing the temple was implied. A person standing in the diaspora should face Eretz Yisrael and pray. One standing in Eretz Yisrael should face Jerusalem. One standing in Jerusalem should face the temple. One standing in the temple should face the Holy of Holies. A blind person who is unable to determine the proper direction for prayer, or when traveling in a boat, should direct his heart towards the divine presence and pray. Right. Remember, we said that it's, this is a preferred thing to do, but if not, then that's okay. Your prayer is still an acceptable prayer. Preparation of one's body. What is implied? When one stands in prayer, he should place his feet together side by side. He should set his eyes downwards as if he's looking at the ground, and his heart upwards as if he's standing in heaven. His hand should be resting on his heart, with the right hand clasped over the left, like this. We don't do that. maybe some people do, but we don't do that. Maybe we clasp it in front. He should stand like a servant before his master, in fear, awe, and dread. He should not rest his hands on his hips during the Amida like this. That's haughtiness, right? That's haughtiness. But like this, I don't see anybody doing that. So Rambam says it, huh? Yeah, but that's what he says. But I've never, you know, the Rebbe hands down either on the side or because he's got a stender in front of him, so his hands like, you know, or some people just like this, but down, in front in a humble manner. Okay. Proper clothing, what is implied? One should adjust his clothing and make himself neat and presentable before praying, as implied, bow to God in resplendent holiness. One should not pray wearing only his undershirt, bareheaded or barefoot. If the custom of the people of that place to appear before the most respected people wearing shoes. I guess in some places, they didn't wear shoes, so. Okay, in all places, one should not hold tefillin in his hand or a Torah scroll in his arms during the Amidah, since he will worry about them. Similarly, one should not hold utensils or money in his hand. However, he may pray while holding a lulav on Sukkot, since it is the commandment of the day. If one is carrying a burden of less than 4 kabin on his head, when the time of the Amidah arrives, he should throw it over his shoulder and pray. If it is larger than 4 kabin, we should place it on the ground and then pray. It is customary for all the sages and the students to pray only when wrapped in a talis. For Shachris, obviously speaking about, for the morning prayer, right? And that's what we do. Huh? Excuse me, and tefillin. It's interesting. Why he only says talis? Let me just see. Not certain. I'm wondering if the tefillin, it was taken for granted that the tefillin were on.
Yeah, because in the note here, only refers to the toilet. In the note.
What does it say?
That it says Shabbat 10a relates to Ruach Hana, with Ruach himself in the toilet. The Hani 20a also tells us.
Right.
So it only refers to toilet.
Right. I'm just thinking because the tefillin might be a given. Maybe, I'm not certain. Need to look into that.
So,
right. Okay, number 6, proper place. What is implied? One should stand in a low place and turn his face towards the wall. Also, one should open windows or doors that face Jerusalem and pray opposite them. As it states, I never saw this about opening windows or doors. And he had the windows open in his room facing Jerusalem. Sure. I never saw that. Right. A person should establish a fixed place where he always prays. That's important. One should not pray in a destroyed building, nor should one pray behind the synagogue, unless he turns his face towards the synagogue. It is forbidden to sit down next to someone in the midst of the Amidah, or to pass in front of him except at a distance of 4 cubits. Yeah. In other words, don't pass in front of someone who's still in their prayers. Pass on the side of them, but not in front of them.
stands at 50 parts in front of us.
Huh?
At least 4 cubits ahead in front of them.
Yeah, exactly.
6 feet.
Yeah. One should not stand in a place 3 or more handbreadths high and pray. This is a handbreadth, right? So, I like, stand on a chair and pray. Huh?
It goes on to speak about that afterwards.
Yeah. Similarly, he should not pray while standing on a bed, bench, or a chair. Oh, okay, so a raised platform that has a surface area of 4 cubits by 4 cubits, which is the minimum size of a house, is considered like a loft. Thus, one is permitted to pray there. So, let's say by our steps going up to the right, you could pray there because that's more than 4 by 4.
Oh,
And you could pray there. Now, the person may not feel comfortable to pray there and be maybe a little self-conscious, so then that's not good. Because then your mind is not affixed appropriately. Similarly, it is if he is surrounded by walls, even if it is not 4 cubits by 4 cubits, one may pray there, since its height is not noticeable, because it constitutes an area unto itself. How is it? Let's say you're in a small, I don't know, size of a bathroom, not a bathroom though, a closet. Oh, perfect idea is a closet, right? So, but it's, I guess what it means is a closet outside. That's you've got a shed.
like a shed outside.
A shed, and it's a higher, it's a platform, but it's not 4 by 4, it's not 6 feet by 6 feet. It's a bit less than that. So he said, but because there's walls and all, so it's not noticeable that you're on a platform. The point is, there's a sense of humility that you're standing before God, and if you're standing on a platform, you won't have that sense. If it's more than 4 by 4, you will. The truth is, maybe I'm just thinking, going back now, on the platform that we have over here by the taking out the Torah, since you're going to feel that you are higher, so then you probably shouldn't daven there. Probably shouldn't daven there because you're going to naturally feel, right, so exalted, and therefore not a sense of humility, that standing in awe before God. Right. Okay, when the time of the Amidah arrives, craftsmen working on top of a tree or on top of a board or a wall must descend in order to pray and then return to their work. If they were at the top of an olive or a fig tree, they may pray where they are because of the excessive effort involved in descending. What is it that they pray? If they are working for meals alone, they recite 3 prayers of the 19 blessings. If they're working for wages, they recite, give us understanding. In either case, they do not lead the congregation or lift up their hands to bless the people, meaning priestly blessings if they're a kohen. So you do all 3 prayers of the morning, afternoon, and evening prayers, the 19 blessings, right? That's if you were working for meals alone, meaning you're not working for the hour. You hear? But if you're working for wages, in other words, if you're making $20 this hour, your hour belongs to the employer. And therefore, you cannot pray a full Amidah because you're taking away 5 minutes from the hour. So then you have to pray, but you have an obligation to pray. So we learned in, I think it was yesterday's class or the day before, I remember now. Yeah, it was yesterday. We learned that there's a prayer, Avinenu, which is taking all 19 blessings and putting it into one. And that's a short prayer that, might take 30 seconds, so that you could take and pray 30 seconds, a minute or whatever, instead of 5 minutes. which because your time doesn't belong to you. The condensed form, yeah. Control of one's voice, what is implied? A person should not raise his voice during his Amida, nor should he pray silently. Rather, he should pronounce the words with his lips, whispering in a tone that he can hear. He should not make his voice audible, unless he is sick or cannot concentrate otherwise. In such a case, it is permitted except when in a congregation, lest the others are disturbed by his voice. Bowing, what is implied? One who prays should bow 5 times in each of the Amida. The first blessing at the beginning and at the end of the first blessing, right? It's by Baruch Atah Hashem. In the blessing of thanks, right, of Moedim, at the beginning and the end, and upon completing the Amida, one bows and takes 3 steps backwards while bound. If he takes leave after from his left and afterwards from his right, then he lifts his head up from the bowed position. When he bows the other 4 times, he does so in the utterance of the word blessed, straightens up by reciting God's name, Baruch. And so, Baruch, you bend your knees, Ata, your body like this, and then Hashem, you're standing. To whom does the above apply? To an ordinary person. However, the high priest bows at the beginning and the end of every blessing. A king bows at the beginning of the Amida and does not lift his head until he completes the whole Amida. Such nullification he has, such awe of God, a real king. Why should one take leave from his left first, and others bow from your left, then to your right? Usually we do things from the right first, because one's left is to the right side of God's countenance, because you're standing before the king. So when you're taking leave of the king, when you're finishing your Amida and taking back, so you bow to the left first, because my left is the right to who I'm in front of God, right? So just like when it stands before a king, he takes leave from the right of the king, and then afterwards from the left of the king. That's the establishment. One should withdraw from the Amida in the same manner as he withdraws from before a king. All these bows require that one bow until the vertebrae of the spine protrude, and he makes himself like a bow. However, if one bows slightly to the extent that it causes him strain, and he appears to have bowed with all of his powers, he need not worry. Prostration was implied. After one lifts his head from the 5th bow, he sits on the ground, falls on his face towards the earth, utters a supplication that he desires. This is Tachanun. Right, today we didn't do Tachanun because we're going to Asim Sefer Torah, a Torah scroll that's being finished. But when you say Tachanun, right, so you supplicate, you put your head down in this manner, the supplication, right? Kneeling always refers to the falling on one's knees, bowing, and bending one's face, and prostration, stretching out one's hands and feet until they're flat on the face of the ground. Okay. When uttering the prayers of supplication, again, Tachanun, after the Amida, there are those who bow and there are those who prostrate themselves. So it is forbidden to prostrate oneself on stones except in the Holy Temple. So we explain the Hilchos by the Kechavim. An important person is not permitted to fall on his face unless he is certain that he is righteous as Joshua. Rather, he should tilt his face slightly, but not press it to the ground. One may pray in one place and offer these supplications in another place. Again, that's what it means. You're putting your hand like this and you're tilting your head forward like this. That's what it means over here. That's the halacha for this chapter 5. It is accepted custom among the entire Jewish people not to utter prayers of supplication on Shabbos and festivals, nor does one utter on Rosh Hashanah, Rosh Chodesh, Chanukah, and Purim, or in Mincha on the eve of the Shabbos and holidays, nor in the evening prayer of any day. There are, however, those who do utter the prayer of supplication in the evening prayer. We don't do that. I don't know anybody that does it, actually. I don't know who that is. Not certain who that is today. On Yom Kippur, only one utters a prayer as a supplication in every prayer, since it's a day of supplication, request, and fasting. Okay. Amazing. All right, folks, we'll see you, God willing, later on by Torah studies. An amazing, great day.